My name is Claire Mitchell. I'm 34, and I used to think that blood meant something. I used to think that family was the one thing you could count on when the world turned upside down. I was wrong. I was so catastrophically wrong that it took a single phone call on a rainy Tuesday afternoon to make me see just how deep the rot had spread. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where every good story starts, with the moment everything fell apart. It was the third Tuesday of October, and I was sitting in my new apartment in Portland, 300 miles from where I'd grown up, when my phone rang. The screen showed a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was from back home in Sacramento, so I answered. Claire Mitchell? A woman's voice, crisp and professional. Yes, this is Claire. This is Officer Dana Reeves with the Sacramento Police Department. I'm calling because we have 3 minors here at the station, a 12-year-old boy, a 9-year-old girl, and a 6-year-old boy. They gave your name and your old address on Elm Street as their emergency contact. I felt the blood drain from my face. I'm sorry. What? The children arrived by taxi at 1847 Elm Street approximately 2 hours ago. The current resident, a Mrs. Patricia Holloway, found them on her doorstep with luggage and a note. When she realized the situation, she called us. The children are insisting they were sent to Aunt Claire's house. I closed my eyes. My hands started to shake. Officer, I moved out of that apartment 6 months ago. I haven't spoken to my sister in 4 months. I explicitly told her, in writing, via text, and in a certified letter, that I would not be taking her children under any circumstances. There was a pause on the other end. I see. The children are saying their mother told them you'd be expecting them. That you were excited to have them for a while. That's a lie. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. Officer, my sister, Deborah Mitchell, is a manipulative narcissist who has been using me as free childcare since her divorce 3 years ago. 6 months ago, I cut her off completely. I blocked her number. I moved 300 miles away and didn't tell her my new address specifically because of situations exactly like this one. Another pause, longer this time. Mrs. Holloway mentioned that the children had a note with them. It said, and I quote, Claire knows you're coming. She's been looking forward to it. Be good for Auntie. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. This was something worse. This was the moment when you realize that someone you share DNA with sees you as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. Officer Reeves, I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. I need you to understand something. My sister didn't just ignore my boundaries. She manufactured consent. She told her children I was expecting them, knowing I had no idea they were coming. She sent them to an address where I haven't lived in half a year. She put 3 children in a taxi, a 6-year-old, Officer T, and sent them across town to a stranger's house because she couldn't be bothered to find actual childcare, or, heaven forbid, take care of her own kids herself. I understand your frustration, Ms. Mitchell. No, I interrupted, and I was surprised by how calm I sounded. No, I don't think you do, because this isn't just about today. This is about 3 years of Deborah dropping her kids on my doorstep without warning. 3 years of canceled plans, of missed opportunities, of me being treated like a backup parent while she went on dates and spa days and self-care weekends. This is about the time she went to Cancun for 10 days and didn't tell me until the morning her flight left. This is about the time I had to call in sick to work because she forgot. She had a job interview and left the kids with me, just for an hour, that turned into 14. This is about the fact that I haven't had a single relationship in 3 years because no man wants to date a woman who's constantly canceling plans because her sister dumped her kids on her again. I was breathing hard now, the words tumbling out like water breaking through a dam. And the worst part? I continued. The absolute worst part is that Deborah knows exactly what she's doing. She's not some overwhelmed single mother who made a mistake. She's a strategic, calculating abuser who uses her children as weapons to control the people around her. And I am done being one of her targets. Officer Reeves was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. It was softer, but there was an edge to it that hadn't been there before. Ms. Mitchell, I need to ask you something. The children are saying their mother told them you'd be home all day, that you work from home and have plenty of space. Was that ever true? 6 months ago, yes. I worked remotely. I had a 2-bedroom apartment, and Deborah exploited that until I had nothing left. No social life, no savings, no peace. I was her unpaid nanny, her emergency contact, her backup plan, her doormat. And when I finally stood up to her, when I told her I couldn't do it anymore, do you know what she said? What? She said, "You'll change your mind. You always do. You're too soft to say no to the kids." And then she laughed. She actually laughed, officer, because she knew she was right. She knew that every time before, I'd caved. I'd taken the kids. I'd canceled my plans. I'd put my life on hold because those children didn't ask to be born to a selfish mother, and I couldn't bear the thought of them suffering because of her choices. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. I hadn't realized I was crying. But this time, I didn't cave. I moved. I changed my number. I disappeared. And instead of accepting that, instead of finding a babysitter or adjusting her schedule or, God forbid, spending time with her own children, she found my old address, put them in a cab, and lied to them. She lied to her own children and sent them to a stranger's house because she couldn't accept that her free childcare had finally quit. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear voices in the background, children's voices high and confused. One of them was crying. "Ms. Mitchell," Officer Reeves said finally, "what would you like me to tell the children?" I closed my eyes. This was the part that hurt the most, because as much as I hated what Deborah had done, those kids were innocent. Marcus, 12, who loved dinosaurs and was terrible at math but tried so hard. Sophie, 9, who read books faster than I could buy them and had a laugh like wind chimes. And little Danny, 6, who still believed in the Tooth Fairy and called me Auntie Claire Bear in a voice that could melt steel. Tell them. I swallowed hard. Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them I love them, and I'm sorry their mother put them in this position. Tell them. Tell them this isn't their fault. None of this is their fault. And your sister? Deborah? We need to contact her to pick up the children. I took a deep breath. Officer, I have a suggestion. But first, I need to ask you something. Mrs. Holloway, the woman who lives at my old address now, what did she say when she found the kids? She was concerned, upset. She said she'd seen news stories about children being abandoned and didn't want to take any chances. She called us immediately. Did she mention anything else? Anything about the note or the luggage or... She mentioned the luggage seemed excessive for an overnight stay. She said there were 3 large suitcases, and when she looked inside, she shouldn't have, but she was worried. She found enough clothes for several weeks, and school supplies, and a folder with what appeared to be medical records and immunization cards. Several weeks. She'd packed them for several weeks. The cold thing in my chest was spreading, turning into something hot and dangerous. Deborah hadn't just sent them for a day or two. She'd planned to dump them on me for weeks, maybe longer. She'd packed their entire lives into suitcases and shipped them off like packages, knowing I wasn't even there to receive them. Officer Reeves, I said, and my voice was so steady it scared me. I need you to do something for me. I need you to document everything. The note, the luggage, the fact that Deborah sent 3 children, including a 6-year-old, in a taxi without an adult. The fact that she told them I was expecting them when she knew I wasn't. The fact that she sent them to an address where I haven't lived in 6 months. Ms. Mitchell, are you suggesting... I'm suggesting that my sister committed child endangerment, officer. I'm suggesting that she abandoned her children by sending them to a stranger's house with no adult supervision, under false pretenses, with enough belongings for an extended stay. I'm suggesting that she manufactured a situation where 3 children were left alone and vulnerable because she couldn't accept that her unpaid babysitter had finally quit. I could hear Officer Reeves breathing on the other end. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation, and I'm not done yet. I stood up and walked to my window, looking out at the Portland skyline. Rain was starting to fall, streaking the glass like tears. Officer, I need you to do one more thing. I need you to tell Mrs. Holloway that I said thank you, and I need you to give her my number. I think she and I are going to have a very interesting conversation. Mrs. Patricia Holloway was 73 years old, a retired family court judge with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen every version of human dysfunction imaginable. She called me back within an hour of Officer Reeves giving her my number. Ms. Mitchell, she said, her voice like gravel wrapped in velvet. I've been a judge for 40 years and I've seen a lot of terrible parents. But your sister? She might be in the top 10. Mrs. Holloway, I don't even know where to begin thanking you. Don't thank me yet, she interrupted, because I have a proposition for you. You see, when those children showed up on my doorstep, I did more than call the police. I took pictures of the luggage, of the note, of the children's faces when they realized you weren't there and didn't know they were coming. I have a file, Ms. Mitchell, a thick one, and I think you and I could do something very satisfying with it. I sat down hard on my couch. What kind of something? The kind that makes manipulative parents face consequences for the first time in their lives. But I need to know something first. Those children, Marcus, Sophie, and Danny, do you actually care about them? Or are you just angry at your sister? The question hit me like a physical blow. I love those kids, I said, and my voice broke. I love them so much it physically hurts. That's why I had to leave. Because Deborah was using that love against me, and I was drowning. And if I didn't get out, I was going to become someone I didn't recognize. Someone bitter and resentful who took out her frustration on innocent children. I left to protect them from what I was becoming. There was a long pause. Good answer, Mrs. Holloway said finally, because what I'm about to suggest requires that you care about those children more than you hate your sister. It requires that you want justice, not just revenge. Can you do that? I can try. Then listen carefully. Because your sister made one fatal mistake when she sent those kids to my door. She didn't just abandon them. She documented her own crime. That note? The one saying you were expecting them? That's written evidence of fraud and child endangerment. The luggage packed for weeks? That's evidence of premeditation. The taxi receipt the 12-year-old was holding? That's a paper trail. And the medical records? Those prove she intended to leave them with you long-term, without your consent, without legal guardianship paperwork. I was gripping the phone so hard my hand hurt. What are you saying? I'm saying, Ms. Mitchell, that your sister didn't just cross a line, she obliterated it. And with my help, and my connections in the family court system, we can make sure she faces consequences that will change her life. But it won't be quick, and it won't be easy, and there will be moments when you want to back down because those children will get caught in the crossfire. So I need to know. Are you in? I thought about Marcus, who'd been so proud when he finally learned his multiplication tables. About Sophie, who'd cried when she finished Charlotte's Web because she didn't want it to end. About Danny, who still reached for my hand when we crossed the street. I'm in, I said. Tell me what to do. The plan unfolded over the next 3 weeks like a chess game where every move had been calculated 10 moves ahead. Mrs. Holloway was a master strategist, and I was her willing student. First, we filed a formal complaint with Child Protective Services, not against Deborah, not yet, but documenting the incident as a concerned party. Mrs. Holloway's testimony as the receiving adult carried weight that my word alone never could. She described the children's confusion, the excessive luggage, the note, the complete absence of any attempt by Deborah to verify my current address or availability. The mother, Mrs. Holloway wrote in her statement, demonstrated a reckless disregard for her children's safety and emotional well-being. She manufactured a scenario in which 3 minors were transported across town by a stranger and deposited at the wrong address with no adult supervision. This was not a mistake. This was a deliberate act of abandonment disguised as family arrangement. Then came the police report. Officer Reeves had been thorough, documenting Deborah's phone call to the station when she finally showed up, 4 hours after the children were found. She'd been at the spa, she said. She'd lost track of time. She'd assumed Claire was home because she never goes anywhere. The police report included Deborah's statement, which she'd given without a lawyer present because, as Mrs. Holloway predicted, she was too arrogant to think she needed one. Claire loves those kids, Deborah had told the officer. She's just being dramatic. She always does this. Makes a big scene and then comes crawling back. She'll take them. She always does. Those words, she'll take them. She always does, became the cornerstone of our case. Because they proved intent. They proved pattern. They proved that Deborah saw me not as a person with my own life, but as a resource to be exploited whenever she felt like it. But Mrs. Holloway wasn't done. The best revenge, she told me one evening over coffee, isn't destroying your sister. It's making her face the truth about herself. And the truth is, Deborah Mitchell is a parasite who feeds on other people's compassion. So we're going to cut off her food supply. The next move was subtle but devastating. Mrs. Holloway reached out to her network. Other retired judges, social workers, family law attorneys, and quietly shared Deborah's story. Not as gossip, but as a professional warning. Within 2 weeks, 3 attorneys who might have represented Deborah in the upcoming custody battle declined to take her case. 2 nannies who'd been interviewing for positions mysteriously withdrew their applications. A private school that had accepted Marcus for the spring semester sent a letter reconsidering their admission decision pending review of family circumstances. Deborah didn't know why her world was shrinking, but she knew who to blame. My phone, my new unblocked phone, started ringing with numbers I didn't recognize. I let every call go to voicemail. Claire, this is Deborah. What the hell did you do? The school called and said they're reviewing Marcus's admission. What did you tell them? Claire, I know you're there. Pick up the phone. This is ridiculous. I made one mistake and you're trying to ruin my life? Claire, please. The kids are asking about you. Danny keeps saying Auntie Claire Bear and crying. Is that what you want? You want to hurt a 6-year-old because you're mad at me? That last message almost broke me. Almost. But then I played it again, and I heard what Mrs. Holloway had taught me to hear. The manipulation, the weaponization of a child's pain, the complete absence of any actual apology or accountability. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry it wasn't working anymore. The breaking point came on a Friday afternoon, 3 weeks after the taxi incident. I was at my new job, a real job, with an office and colleagues who didn't know anything about my family drama, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Marcus, Sophie, and Danny, standing in front of a house I didn't recognize, holding a sign that said, "We miss you, Auntie Claire." The text that followed made my blood run cold. Claire, this is Mom. Deborah is my daughter, and you're my daughter too, and I won't let you destroy this family. The children are staying with me now because Deborah needs time to get her life together. Which means you're going to step up and help, or I'm going to tell everyone. Your new job, your new friends, everyone. What kind of person you really are. The kind who abandons family when they need her most. You have 24 hours to call me, or I start making calls. My mother. Of course, the woman who'd watched Deborah exploit me for 3 years and never said a word. The woman who'd told me I was too sensitive when I complained, who'd said, "That's what family does," when I cried, who'd accused me of being selfish every time I tried to establish a boundary. I stared at that text for a long time. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I forwarded it to Mrs. Holloway. Her response came 5 minutes later. "Come to Sacramento, tomorrow. Pack a bag. We're ending this." I drove through the night, arriving at Mrs. Holloway's house at dawn. She made me coffee that was strong enough to strip paint and sat me down at her kitchen table. "Your mother just made the same mistake your sister did," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "She documented her own crime. That text? It's extortion. Do what I want or I'll destroy your reputation. And the photo of the children? That's emotional manipulation of a minor for the purpose of coercion. Your mother isn't just enabling your sister anymore, Claire. She's become an active participant in the abuse." I opened the folder. Inside were documents I didn't recognize: court filings, affidavits, a petition for emergency guardianship. "What is this?" "This," Mrs. Holloway said, her eyes gleaming, "is the nuclear option. I've spent 3 weeks building a case that proves Deborah Mitchell is unfit to parent without support, and that your mother has been enabling her behavior to the detriment of the children. And now, thanks to that text, we can prove your mother is actively working against the children's best interests. But the children will be fine, better than fine, because this petition doesn't just target Deborah and your mother, it names you, Claire, as the petitioning guardian." I dropped the folder. "What?" "Those children need someone who actually loves them. Someone who put their well-being ahead of her own comfort and walked away, rather than become part of the problem. Someone who, despite everything, still shows up when it matters. That's you, Claire. It was always you. But I live in Portland. I have a new job. I can't just... Your job has a Sacramento office. I checked. And your lease is month to month. And those children?" She tapped the photo of Marcus, Sophie, and Danny. "They've been asking about you every day. Not because their mother told them to, because they miss you. The real you. The one who read them stories and made them pancakes and taught Marcus to ride a bike. The one who left because she loved them too much to stay and become someone they couldn't trust." I was crying now. Ugly tears that I couldn't stop. "I'm scared," I whispered. "I'm so scared that I'll become like Deborah. That I'll use them the way she used me. That I'll mess them up worse than she already has." "That's how I know you won't." Mrs. Holloway reached across the table and took my hand. Her grip was strong and warm and certain. "Because the people who hurt children? They never worry about becoming monsters. They never ask if they're doing the right thing. They just take what they want and call it love. You're not your sister, Claire. You're not your mother. You're the person those children have been waiting for. And it's time to stop running." The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Deborah hired a lawyer at the last minute, a desperate young associate who clearly hadn't been briefed on the full scope of the case against her. My mother showed up with her chin raised and her lips pressed into a thin line, radiating the kind of righteous fury that only the truly entitled can muster. I sat in the gallery with Mrs. Holloway, watching as the judge, a sharp-eyed woman named Judge Harriet Chen, who'd gone to law school with Mrs. Holloway, reviewed the evidence: the taxi receipt, the note, the luggage, the police reports, the CPS documentation, the text messages, the voicemails, the pattern of exploitation that stretched back 3 years, documented in text messages and emails and bank statements showing I'd spent over $12,000 on childcare expenses for Deborah's children, while she spent her money on spa days and vacations. And then, the piece that Mrs. Holloway had saved for last. "Your Honor," she said, rising from her seat in the gallery. She'd been admitted as a friend of the court, a privilege reserved for retired judges. "I would like to submit one final piece of evidence, a recording made by my home security system on the day the children were abandoned on my doorstep." She played the video. It showed 3 children standing on her porch, holding suitcases, looking around with increasing panic. Marcus trying to be brave for his siblings. Sophie crying silently. Danny sitting down on his suitcase and saying, over and over, "Auntie Claire Bear will come. She always comes." But I didn't come. I couldn't. Because I didn't know they were there. The courtroom was silent. Deborah's lawyer looked at his client with something that might have been disgust. My mother was staring at the table, her face pale. "Ms. Mitchell," Judge Chen said, addressing Deborah, "do you have anything to say for yourself?" Deborah stood, smoothing her dress with hands that shook. Your Honor, I made a mistake. I was overwhelmed. I'm a single mother, and I didn't have anyone to help me, and I thought Claire would understand. She's always understood. She's my sister. Your sister, Judge Chen said, her voice like ice, who moved 300 miles away to escape your exploitation. Your sister, who you sent 3 children to without warning, to an address where she no longer lived. Your sister, who you then tried to manipulate into returning by using her own nephew and nieces as emotional leverage. That sister? Deborah's face crumpled. I didn't know. I didn't think. No, Judge Chen interrupted. You didn't think. You didn't think about your children's safety when you put them in a taxi with a stranger. You didn't think about their emotional well-being when you lied to them about their aunt's expectations. You didn't think about anything except your own convenience. And that, Ms. Mitchell, is why I'm granting the petition for emergency guardianship to your sister, Claire. She banged her gavel. Furthermore, I am ordering supervised visitation for you, Deborah Mitchell, pending completion of parenting classes and psychological evaluation. And you, Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell? She turned to my mother, who flinched. Your behavior constitutes emotional abuse and attempted extortion. If you contact Claire Mitchell again without her express consent, I will issue a restraining order. Do I make myself clear? My mother nodded, her face a mask of shock and fury. Deborah was crying now, real tears that didn't move me at all. Because I'd finally learned the difference between pain that matters and performance that doesn't. That was 6 months ago. Marcus, Sophie, and Danny live with me now, in a house in Sacramento that Mrs. Holloway helped me find, close enough that she can visit, far enough that my mother and Deborah can't just show up. The kids are in therapy, dealing with the confusion and hurt of what their mother did, but they're also thriving. Marcus made the honor roll. Sophie joined a book club. Danny lost his first tooth and put it under his pillow, and when I played Tooth Fairy, he told me the next morning that he knew it was me, but pretended anyway, because the real Tooth Fairy is busy with other kids. Deborah sees them twice a month, supervised, at a family center. She hasn't changed. She still blames me for stealing her children, still tells anyone who'll listen that I'm the villain of this story. But fewer people are listening now. The legal record is public. The truth has a way of filtering out, even through the most determined self-delusion. My mother sends letters. I don't open them. Mrs. Holloway says I should burn them, but I keep them in a box in the closet, unopened, as a reminder of what happens when you let guilt override self-respect. And me? I'm tired. I'm so tired sometimes that I can barely move, but I'm also something I haven't been in years. I'm free. Free from the expectation that love means self-destruction, free from the belief that family is a debt you can never repay. Free to love those children not because I have to, but because I choose to, every single day. The last time Deborah visited, she pulled me aside and said, I hope you're happy. You got what you wanted. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a woman so trapped in her own narrative that she couldn't see the truth even when it was standing right in front of her. I didn't want this, Deborah, I said. I wanted you to be a good mother. I wanted Mom to stand up for me. I wanted a sister who saw me as a person, not a resource. But you couldn't give me that. So I took the only thing you left me, the chance to give these kids something better than what you were offering. She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up my hand. And here's the thing you still don't understand. I didn't win. There are no winners in this story. Just survivors. And I'm surviving. For them. And for me. That's not victory, Deborah. That's just life. The life you could have had if you'd been willing to do the work. She left without another word. I don't know if I'll ever see her change. I don't know if my mother will ever understand. But I know that when Danny calls me Auntie Claire Bear, and Sophie reads me her latest story, and Marcus asks for help with algebra, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Not because anyone forced me, not because I couldn't say no, but because I finally learned that the strongest word in the world isn't yes, it's no, and meaning it.